Welcome back. I would like to learn more about planning for actual living during my retirement, hopefully, and for estate planning. So let's say that I'm fortunate enough to have followed good advice like you're giving today, and during my early years I saved money rather than spent money. And now I'm looking forward to my retirement. I hope to have some Social Security, maybe a small pension, maybe not. How much money should I have in cash or readily available, liquid money, and how much could I keep in the market?
That might be the highest question or the most frequently asked question I get from people who are approaching retirement or newly retired. And I haven't found a great way to answer that question. It's a very personal decision. Some people are very comfortable, the peace of mind having more cash, more flexibility, more liquidity, so to speak. What's the right level is a very personal decision. Again, I come back to the same thought as how much risk should I take? The first question I ask when somebody asks me that question is, how much do you need to expect to spend of your assets, of your investment assets into retirement? Do you have a clear view? Are you going to need to take some income out? Or are you going to need to take income and principal out? If that answer is yes, meaning you're going to need the assets sooner, then the level of cash or safety should just be escalated. If your view is your pension is better than you thought, your other type of income that's available to you in retirement, and your living standards are very comfortable, are you more of a saver than a spender, is maybe one of the next questions I'll ask. Because if you can cover your living expenses off of other income and not needing those assets, then the aspect is maybe cash doesn't have to be as much. The other question I would ask is, what are the expected, unexpected expenses you could have? If you own a house versus renting a house, owning a house, the water heater blows, where are you going to pay for that from? So having those types of things. Do you have a situation where your spouse is still working when you're retired? That might change the decision on how much cash. If not, and you don't have readily income, maybe you want to have more cash. The old rule of thumb of having 3 to 6 months of covering your living expenses, I think is a good starting point. But people are living longer, and they have to take into account how they use their assets and how will their life change for them as they retire. So the actual cash cushion you want to have, I think, will really depend upon a lot of these other things that you need to really consider. How you spend, how you save, will you need those assets? And those also relate to maybe how much more risk you would want to take in your portfolio after retirement, too.
Okay, and something you said made me think, aside from that you might live many more years, I mean, if you're very lucky, you might retire at 60, live to 90, but also as far as, say, planning your estate for that day when, if you ever pass on, or if you'd like to leave something either to your children or to an organization, are there any special things you should consider, again, with investing even at that stage in your life?
Right. I think even if you don't have a significant pool of assets in retirement, or even before retirement, I think it's really important for people to really focus on organization of their investments. So even if you don't have millions of dollars, but you do have investments in different things, if it's a taxable investment, an IRA, a 401k, really understanding how are those things brought together, and then how, if you weren't there tomorrow, who would take over for you? So to me, I always encourage people to understand documentation of all their investments, which includes listing account numbers and listing representatives. Call this broker, call this person at this bank, so they know who, if somebody has to take over for you in the event you're not there, having it all organized. You don't have to have millions of dollars to be prepared for somebody needing to do that. So that's the first thing I always say to people, is even if it's not a pile of investments, you still should have good documentation where things are located. Now, if your assets are larger, there might be some ideas to include formal estate planning, wills, trusts. Now, not being an attorney or an estate person, I really encourage at certain income levels, certain asset levels, it's very important to get proper guidance and meeting with the appropriate, if it's an attorney or estate planner, to make sure that they're maximizing, if you want to say, passing on assets in the event of a demise, or in the event of maybe skipping generations from a tax standpoint. There's definitely things you can do. But that really has to be for investors that maybe have larger pools of assets. So from my standpoint, there's many things people should consider, should be thinking about that way before retirement. These are things you should be considering as you move along, as you do gain wealth, as you do build more assets, is well, what would happen if I'm not here tomorrow? And that includes planning, for documentation of your house and other assets, not just investment assets.
Right. And that sounds like such a great idea, believe me, that documentation. And it could just be a loose leaf binder. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy, just something that someone would know so they don't have to go digging through your papers.
My own personal first experience was when my father passed away about 11 years ago and did not have a significant investment portfolio himself, but there was a lot of things I didn't know where they were.
Yeah.
And that taught me, for my own personal situation, I better become more organized. I created a spreadsheet. I just created an Excel spreadsheet on the computer and just created columns. Locations, brokers, account numbers, who I should call, those kind of things. Just to help, the thought is, if I'm not here tomorrow, whoever would pick it up would have a better understanding than I did in the situation with my father.
Iggy, what kind of insurance should I be thinking about protecting my assets and taking care of my family, especially at this point in my life?
Well, not being an insurance specialist, I'll give you some common sense view. When people think of insurance, they generally think of life insurance, which is really there to protect a family, relatives from an early death, which is has been around for a long time and is still a very important part of a financial plan. Some of the newer things that have come along, disability income insurance, is something to protect in the event that you don't pass, but you can't earn the same level of income that you have come accustomed to. This is very important, I think, for if you have a family that there's a sole owner, a sole wage earner, where in the event that they couldn't work, how would that impact the family? So it has the ability to, in the event of any kind of disability, to allow the family to maintain its lifestyle based upon maybe a reduced level of income, but not as reduced as if you had no disability income. And the other thing, which is probably the newest, is long-term care insurance, which is insurance in the event you live too long. And it's a situation where you need assistance as we get older. People are living longer, but maybe need more assistance as they live. So this also allows you to protect your assets so that those assets are not required for covering nursing facilities or long-term care or assisted living type facilities, which have become very commonplace as people are living longer. So I really think insurance should be considered. Talking with a qualified person versus somebody like myself, but I really do view that insurance is there in the case you die too young, you live much longer than you expect, or in a situation where maybe your income is impacted based upon a disability or other event in your life.
Okay, thank you. It's been great hearing all this information from you and thinking about all of these things. And again, since I do work at the library, I want to remind everyone that we have a wealth of information resources here. We have books and we have websites. We have investment tools that people use, Morningstar and Value Line. So there are a lot of ways to come to the library and get free and reliable good health information. But there's nothing like talking to a real person like yourself to shed light on some of these things that can be a little mysterious to the lay person. But before we conclude, I just wondered if there was any last thoughts you'd like to share with us about investing.
I think the one thing I would conclude with is, as I talk with people who approach retirement or near retirement or newly retired, they're very concerned, do I have to change something today? And do I have to make a change? And it comes back to many of the things we talked about. Do you need your assets to live off of after you stop working, after you retire? How comfortable are you with risk of investments? I really encourage people in that planning phase as they approach retirement to maybe increase the level of cash. We talked earlier about how much cash should I have. I always say to people, you know what? Having more cash is never going to hurt you. And giving you the flexibility so that once you do retire, you have the time to relax. Get used to your new lifestyle. How is it going to change my expenses? How is it going to change my environment to invest and to live? And if I have more cash, that might give me the flexibility to sort of wait. I really encourage people not to make wholesale changes unless they really need to, but give them the time to sort of slide into retirement in a phase that allows their finances to evolve with them as their life is going to evolve. So I really encourage people not to panic. It is a change of life, but it is also, it doesn't have to be this dramatic change for their finances. So really encourage people in those situations to maybe go with a little bit more cash if they're uncertain, and then make the decisions gradually as their life evolves. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being here, and I hope you've all learned as much as I have today about investing in your 50s and 60s. Thank you.
This program is one of a series of programs on money and investing presented by the Milwaukee Public Library. This program is made possible by a grant from the FINRA Investor Education Foundation through Smart Investing at Your Library, a partnership with the American Library Association. You may view this program again through the Milwaukee Public Library website, www.mpl.org. Click on the Research Resources link on the left side of the page and then click on the Smart Investing link. To read more about money and investing, contact your local public library. The number to call at the Central Library is 286-3011.
This has been an MCM Productions program.